Born and grew up in the area. Lulu, the singer, has lived here most of her life and is neighbours with Ronnie Wood from the Rolling Stones. There are also houses in the area belonging to Glenn Matlock from the Sex Pistols, Noel Gallagher from Oasis, and Bill Curbishley, band manager of The Who since the 70s. Out here on the right is a white house with a blue plaque commemorating John Masefield, a poet who lived there in the early 1900s. He was poet laureate for a few years, and he's one of my favourite poets. If you're not familiar, I'd recommend you look up a poem of his called Sea Fever. It's a beautiful, beautiful piece of writing. Unlike most of his peers, he was not educated at Oxford or Cambridge. He spent most of his formative years at sea, and this is very much reflected in his writing. Also in Maida Vale is the Colonnade Hotel, where Alan Turing was born in 1912. He basically invented the computer, and with one of his first designs, he managed to decrypt the Enigma code, which the Nazis and German military were using to pass secret messages in World War II. He saved literally millions of lives, and as most historians agree, caused the war to end at least 2 years earlier than it would have otherwise. The story's told in greater detail in a film called The Imitation Game, and I do recommend it. It's a really good film. Even though I've just spoiled the ending, it's still definitely worth watching. On the left here is a green boat called Mayflower. To the left of that is a cream-coloured boat called Philona, which used to belong to Dave Stewart of the Eurythmics. He also once lent it to Bob Dylan for a music video filmed in Camden in the 90s. It was for a song called Blood in My Eyes. Coming up on the right is an ivy-covered house, which about 30 years ago was caught in the middle of a vicious bidding war between Madonna and Barbra Streisand. Naturally, with such fierce divas battling it out, there could only be one winner, and that winner was Michael Flatley, star of Riverdance. It was a record-breaking first-time purchase, setting him back £20 million. Prior to that, he'd always stayed either in hotels or at his mum and dad's house. It was then purchased by Sir Bill Kenwright, theatre and film director and chairman of Everton Football Club, and he resided there until he passed away in November 2023. Next on the right, that big red Gothic building is the Catholic Apostolic Church, completed in 1892 and locally known as the Secret Church, as we never see anyone go in or come out. They only have a few members. It's invite only, so that won't change anytime soon. They also have no living minister. A minister can only be ordained by an apostle, and has been one of them in over 100 years, so that's not going to change either. Now, in order to understand why this canal exists, why it was necessary in the first place, we have to go all the way back to before motorised engines were invented. We're talking around the turn of the 19th century. Businesses needed a way of moving heavy loads of cargo around the city, and they figured out if a horse was going along the road, it could only carry 2 tons, but if instead the horse was dragging stuff along water, it could move 50 tons. Half that capacity would be taken up by the weight of the boat itself, but it still meant the horse could carry more than 10 times what it could on land. The cargo could be timber, cement, iron, steel, coal, and would all be stored right where you're sitting. There would often be a whole family living on one of these boats as well as working on it, but with this part of the boat all filled up with cargo, the only living space they had was the cabin at the back, which is now where we have our motorised engine. Right where the engine is where they had a coal stove, which would be used for warmth and cooking. As a lifestyle, it was about as glamorous as it sounds, but it was a vital part of fueling the Industrial Revolution in the 1800s. The horse would be attached to the middle of the boat with a rope, and would pull it along by running on this towpath on the left. However, you might have noticed that we're about to be sucked into a massive dark void through which the towpath does not run. This is Maida Hill Tunnel. It's 248 metres long, and the only way you could get through it back in the day was by leading the horse over the top, and then 2 members of the boat crew would lay a plank of wood along the front of the boat, sit on either end, and then walk their feet along the walls of the tunnel, relying entirely on their leg strength to drag the boat. This process was known as legging, and is believed to be the origin of the phrase legging it. Ironically, that now means going somewhere quickly. This was, of course, the complete opposite. There'd also sometimes be orphans and poor street children who would offer to help leg through the tunnel. They'd wrap bits of cloth around their feet to protect them, and for that, they earned the nickname toe rags.